All right. So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. My name is Ashley. I am a mom of three. My youngest son and only son, I guess. My youngest son has Apert syndrome. And he was born unexpectedly with that 4.5 years ago. And we hit the ground running
That
with that.
sounds like us. Did you know about his diagnosis before he was born?
I didn't. No, I didn't. And I had lots of ultrasounds. We did an ultrasound each time to check measurements. And then I did we had like the normal anatomy scan at 20 weeks, and nothing was picked up on there except for a couple things that had nothing to do with Apert syndrome. And I had a checkup 3 weeks later. They checked to see if those things that they had seen were fixed or whatever. I guess not fixed, but better. And then nothing again was picked up there either. So it was a total surprise.
Did he spend any time in the NICU?
Yeah, so after he was born, he had a little bit of trouble breathing, but they were able to do some blow by oxygen, and then he was doing pretty well on his own after a day or so. We spent 5 days in the local NICU in my hometown, and then we came home for a day and a half. He was doing great. We came home, and then he caught those like the common cold. It's like rhinovirus. It doesn't do anything almost to anybody else, but it knocked him out. And so we waited in the PICU at our local hospital for a bed to open up, and then we were life flighted over to Seattle and spent 5.5 weeks there. And that's where we discovered he had major heart complications. He had his very first heart surgery there, and recovery and all that. So yeah, it was
And
it was quite the beginning. Yeah, it was
that's
quite the beginning.
actually when you and I met,
That's
was
right. Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
during his heart surgery. Do you want to tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about why he had to have heart surgery?
Yeah. So he has what's called Schoen's complex. It's kind of a constellation of, I think, 4 different heart defects. So the major ones that needed to be addressed when he was 2 weeks old was his aortic arch was pinched. So there was like a very, like there was only a tiny bit of blood going through that arch because of the pinch. And then he had a decent hole in the side in his heart as well. And so they went in to fix those things. At one point, while it was such a balancing act because he was sick with a cold and they discovered his heart stuff at the same time. So, but it was such, they didn't want him to get too sick with his heart, but they wanted him to recover enough to be able to go through his heart surgery. And so that's why it took 2 weeks. We had to wait for his body to be ready. But in the meantime, they were taking blood pressure from his upper extremities and his lower to make sure that what was happening. And at one point, his lower extremities, the blood pressure was too low, which meant that he wasn't getting enough blood into like his intestines and stuff. So he had to stop eating, which was, Jace hated that. I think that was like,
Not
I
fun.
think that's probably, he's probably made up for that his entire life with eating now. But so that was really hard. But then, yeah, they did the surgery. And then he was on, he was sedated and stuff for a few days while that all healed. And then, yeah, he did great after. I mean, they were able to extubate him and stuff. So
Yeah, he did amazing. And I remember all of us as a community just
yeah,
being there and waiting for the updates. And that
yeah,
was a
it
really
was awesome.
emotional day, I think,
It
for
was.
all of us,
It
because we
was,
were all
yeah.
just watching and waiting.
Yeah. And it was emotional for me. It was awesome to have that community. That's one of the things about our Apert community is that because I was alone. My then husband was in 8 hours away with our daughters at the time, and I was all alone. There was no one with me. So it was nice to be, I wasn't alone, but
Right.
physically anyways. So it was nice to have that community for sure.
Has Jace ever had to have any type of medical devices, like any kind of feeding tubes or anything like that?
No, he never had a feeding tube. He didn't have to have a trach or anything. He did have to have a surgery at 4 months old. He was struggling to breathe. So like his left nose was completely closed when he was born, and then his right was very, very narrow. So they did do a surgery where they removed some of the bony parts of your nose inside, and then they placed a stent. It was like a piece of endotracheal tube. They placed it inside and stitched it in. And he did have that for, I want to say 9 months or so, around there. And we had to section it out and stuff. But that, thankfully, has been so far the only thing that on that side of things. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many surgeries has he had so far?
He has had 18 to date. Yeah. So it's been, he had a second heart surgery and, the normal skull surgeries and hand surgeries. But yeah, it's been 18 of them. Yeah.
And Jace had the rosebuds, right? On his
No,
fingers.
he did.
He had
mittens. Yeah.
mittens.
So
Okay.
he had the type 1. But his was a little different because most of the time they are, they're the same on each side. So
Right.
if it's free on this side, it's free on the other hand. And his wasn't like that. So then his left hand, although it was considered a type 1, was more severe in the fusing. He had, these 2 fingers were completely fused from the base up in bone.
Right.
But yeah, so he had the 2 surgeries and now has all 10 fingers now.
Yes. Yes, which is exciting because I
Yes,
feel
it
like
is.
that surgery, I feel like just the way that you guys got to that surgery
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the
it
way
was a
things
journey.
lined up,
Yeah.
that it
That
was
was crazy.
exciting
It
for him
was
to
so
get all
exciting.
10.
Yes, it was awesome because I didn't know until the moment he was going to go into surgery that the surgeon was going to try it. So, and I mean, he did such a great job. They look amazing.
They do.
So.
They really do. So he had OT, PT, and speech therapy as well.
Yeah, he started PT and OT right when we got back. Well, not right away, but soon after we got back from the NICU in Seattle. So that was around maybe 7 or 8 weeks old. And he's had that forever. Like he's never stopped. And then speech started in around, they did a couple like evaluations and stuff, but they didn't start officially doing speech to closer to about 10 months or so. And then he's had that along with the other 2 for his whole life. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. And then has he started school?
He did. He just started school.
Yes.
He actually just had his last day because it was so close to summer break, but he went for, I don't even know, maybe 6 or 7 weeks at the end. He does a special needs program. So it was really small, lots of support. He even got extra therapy, which was really awesome. And I just love the people, and he really seemed to thrive. It was only a couple hours twice a week. And he'll do the same thing next year. And they're going to try to do an hour or so each day in the Head Start classroom, the mainstream Head Start classroom with an aide to see how he does and kind of try to increase that, I think, a little bit. So, but yeah, he did great.
Very nice. And so will he continue to get therapy at home as well as at school, or will it just be at school?
Yeah. So, well, the way, I'm not sure if when he starts kindergarten, if that's kind of what we'll do, but for now, since school is only the 2 days a week, we did just keep our outside therapy. So he had PT, OT, and speech, and then he also had received those 3 things during the week at school too. So it was
very
good.
Cool.
Good extra stuff to help him out. Yeah.
Very cool. And so for some of you that don't maybe know Ashley as well as I'm lucky enough to know Ashley, Jace says very few words, but he has this really cool machine that he was able to get. So would you mind telling us about Jace's machine?
Yeah, and I even have it. So he has this. It's called an augmented communication device. Adaptive augmented communication. I don't know, AAC. I don't know what that stands for. I might be making up words. I don't know. Anyways, it's his communication device. So he uses this. He does have some words, but Jace struggles. It's not just kind of a delay. He struggles in something that they're leaning more and more towards a diagnosis of apraxia, which is a condition where the brain has trouble sending the signals to make the right sounds and especially like sounds together, longer sounds, stuff like that. So that's kind of what we're leaning for. So he's had this device for probably I want to say it's been a year and a half.
I think so. Yeah.
Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and so he uses this for, we're still learning. It's been like learning a second language, especially for me. I'm like, listen, I don't know what the word is either. I got to find it, but he does great. We've been starting to do, I've seen this thing where a couple had a little girl that couldn't hear. And so we've been doing, and they did like what they called, they shut their voices off and did sign for her, like doing a grocery trip or something to practice and to kind of like, I don't know, surround her with that. And so we've been starting to do that as well, where I shut my voice off and I force myself to use this. And while it's fantastic, I totally understand his frustration now, because when you can talk, it's so quick. And then people don't want to wait for you to tap something out and to find the word. But it's been such a good bridge though, because he has so much to say. He's so smart. He has so much to say.
He is. He's super smart.
Yeah.
And I love watching the videos. So is that something that you would want to include in this video, is your link to your family's Facebook page?
Yeah, sure.
Initially, it started out as just for Jace, but now it's for your whole family.
Yeah. Yes, with
really
her. Cool. Yeah. And it started as just a way to kind of just update family, because we were getting such crazy information all the time. And then it just kind of grew into this advocacy type thing. It's been really awesome. It's like morphed into something I didn't ever anticipate.
I love it.
I would love to.
Yes, definitely. So it's called Embracing Us, and it's on Facebook, and I will include the link in the description box for anybody that wants to go check that out. Yeah. And as far as how he's doing now, I know that he's had recently an additional diagnosis. Yeah. And so do you mind explaining?
So Jace has been, it's not official. He's still waiting on an evaluation by a multidisciplinary team, but it's pretty, like they did like kind of a rule out diagnosis. He has autism. Well, his sister has autism as well. She was diagnosed when she was 3. She's 6 now. But Jace is heading along those lines also. So that has been a curveball in our journey, something that definitely wasn't expected. I mean, we didn't expect any of this, I guess, but it felt kind of more like a bigger punch in the gut. But I think that's why he probably has a harder time speaking. That they think it might be related to that instead of the way that his facial features and stuff might affect speech. It's not just that. I think it's also the autism piece. But I mean, he does great. He does struggle with some things, getting overstimulated, overwhelmed, social aspects, things like that. But he's made great progress. It's nice to know the diagnosis, I guess. I think sometimes people shy away from that, but I've always, even with my daughter, I feel like it's now that you know how to help. Exactly. So it's always kind of been a breath of just like a relief, I guess, a weight off to know that, you're not crazy and that you were seeing the things and, it was harder. And so now we can help him, and he has some great supports that his therapists have put into place too, to help him with those things first, then schedules and things that really help with that change in routine and staying to a certain thing.
And it's nice to have that, the diagnosis, and it's as much as you don't want the diagnosis necessarily, it's validating for you.
Yeah, exactly.
On what you're seeing and what you're observing. And I know that with your daughter, she got additional therapies. Does Jace get those additional therapies as well?
He's on a waiting list. So Scarlett received what's called ABA therapy. It's behavioral type stuff. So it worked on like working towards goals and being able to, like sit still or, like hold a conversation, stuff like that. Just little things that and it helped great. She did awesome. It helped with her with school and stuff. And so Jace is on the waiting list for that as well. It's a long waiting list. We have limited services in that area here where we live, but he is on a waiting list, and so he has not received those extra therapies as of yet.
One of the questions that I didn't ask in the last interview, I wanted to ask you as far as community waivers. Is Jace on any type of community waivers?
So is that kind of like, are we talking about like Medicaid type waiver type things? So he does receive SSI, which is Social Security benefits. He's received that since he's been born. That is, I'm not sure if that's exactly due to just the Apert syndrome, or if it was the Apert syndrome along with the heart defects.
Right.
But he does receive that. He is on Medicaid, but we don't have the Medicaid waiver. Like I know in a lot of states, I think that you guys have that, right?
We do, yeah.
And so we don't have that. So it's still income based on my income. So if I was to make too much, Jace would lose that.
Right.
He is on a waiting list, but in Montana, I think the waiting list for that is like 8 to 10 years long. So he's
wow.
Yeah. So he's been on that waiting list since he's been around one-ish or so. But it's going to be a while. So, and other than that, I'm trying to think. Other than that, we don't have any other kinds of waivers or stuff like that. Just
Yeah, because ours, we got really lucky with Emma. We got very, very lucky, and the whole process took about 9 months.
Right.
To get her on the medically fragile.
Like right. And when you're dealing with this kind of thing and you need that, it's nice. That still seems like a long time to me, but like that's awesome though that it didn't take 8 to 10 years.
Yes, because but even in New Mexico with the developmental disability waiver, that's still an 8 to 10 year wait for that waiver.
Yeah, that's right. That's the same here. That's the same.
Yeah, I'm curious, different states on how different states are, and I forgot to ask Marcy about that and what it's like in her state.
Right, in her state, yeah.
It's
crazy how every state is so different in what you can and can't get and support and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. What else would you like to tell us about Jace and your guys' journey with all the different surgeries? And so you guys travel for your surgeries.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So we recently got a children's hospital here, but it's not the caliber hospital that it has a few things, but they still can't treat Jace. So we have always had to travel. So when we were going to Seattle, that was, 8 hours away, and we have since transferred care. Jace was maybe 4 months old, I think, when we transferred care down to Salt Lake. So we travel, that's 6 to 7 hour drive to there. We go to Primary Children's Hospital. We love it there. He's had 18 surgeries. Not all of those have been, I think the majority have been at children's hospitals. But there has been a couple that we've been able to do locally as he's gotten older. He does have something called malignant hypothermia that he's been diagnosed with. And he had like 10 surgeries under his belt before he was diagnosed with this, which is crazy. But what it is it's an allergy basically to the inhaled anesthetic gas. And he almost died. It was a very, very scary surgery. He went in for a cranial. They were going to do the front orbital advancement. They weren't even really, far into the surgery. I don't think they had even started to address his bones. And he flatlined. They'd had to resuscitate him, I think, twice in the OR. They weren't able to close. He came up wrapped up. He went to the ICU. They didn't know what was happening because it was kind of an odd presentation. When he spiked this really high fever, everything kind of just started to stabilize. The next day, they took him back into the OR. They still hadn't understood what happened. They took him back into the OR so they could close his incision, and then it happened again. The heart step didn't happen. He didn't flatline, but he spiked a huge fever. He had all this muscle breakdown stuff. And so that's kind of how we came to that. So that has changed the way we do surgeries. So he's still able to have them, but he cannot have any kind of anesthetic inhaled gas. So that's kind of
just the inhaled?
Just the inhaled. So he has to receive anesthetic through like an IV.
Okay.
So, and a lot of the times they won't I think now he always has to be the first case because he cannot even be in a room where like a surgery was performed and there's possible gas in the air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's actually changed the way that, like, so if I was to get surgery or Scarlett actually has a dental procedure, she has to have the same precautions, even though she's never had, it's because it's supposedly it runs in families. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it's
Wow.
kind of
That's
crazy.
scary.
It was extremely scary. Yeah. I'm glad we know, and it's something that's very easily avoidable now
Right.
that we know, but it was crazy, 10 surgeries in, he never had any issues in that boat.
Exactly. He's never
Yeah,
had any reactions, and then all of a sudden,
right. It was wild. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I mean, our journey has been pretty crazy. I will say that for new families coming into this, everybody's journey is different. Not everybody's is quite so excited.
yes,
but
exciting is
I
a
will
good word to use.
listen, I feel like I've been in a medical internship. You know what I mean? I'm just like an
Yes.
apprentice. I'm apprentice. There should be a
Yes.
degree at the end of it. Um,
We should have
I will
letters
say,
behind our names.
right? Exactly. Yes, exactly. Expert medical mama.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say though that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes I felt like in my deepest and in the trenches, when we were in the trenches with all this stuff, that it was never going to slow down. It was never going to end. It was never going to just be okay. Sometimes I felt like that. I felt like, and so I will say it lasted about, Jace was pretty medically fragile for a little while. So I will say that his first year was really scary. I feel like, I always felt like we were just on the precipice of something terrible, terrible happening.
Yes.
It was dark. And so, but then for the next 3 years, it wasn't quite as, I feel like we settled into it, but he also wasn't quite as medically fragile in that way. His heart stuff had been addressed and breathing stuff had been addressed. So for the next 3 years, it was just mostly a lot of surgeries. We did have some hospitalizations for, the colds and stuff like that, pneumonia related to those. And so that aspect of it just seemed never ending. Even though we'd settled into it. But I will say that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We have finally reached a breathing point. We haven't had a surgery since January of this year. And that's been the longest stretch, I feel like, I think, in this last 4 years. And so it's been nice. Now we can just it's nice to just be able to. So there is a light. That's what I want to say. There is a light. It will happen and it's okay. And it's also okay to not be okay for a little while.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's so exciting now to see the videos of the kids playing in the snow and playing with the dog and, doing all the things. It's so exciting to see all of that. Life. And just living and thriving.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. So
what is one piece of advice that you would give to new Apert parents?
Ooh, that's tough. That is tough. I would say, I think that what I wish somebody would have helped me with when I was first going through all of this medical stuff, I feel like I needed somebody to tell me that it's okay to stand up to the doctors and nurses and hospital staff. It's okay. And they're not always right. If you have a feeling, pursue it. If you need something, you advocate. And I feel like before I had Jace, you just have this acceptance that when you go to a hospital or you talk to a doctor, that their word is law, or, and so when, we really struggled. I feel like I really struggled in the beginning to understand what my rights, I guess, were, and what I could do and what I could say and how we could maneuver in the hospital system. And so I just feel like I think that's what I would have wanted somebody to tell me, that it's okay to advocate, to question, to say, hey, what is there another option? I want a second opinion. Or, we ended up changing hospitals when Jace was like 4 or 5 months old. And it was the best decision, I feel like. And even then, no hospital is perfect. I feel like it's always going to be, wild and crazy and miscommunications, but definitely advocate, it's okay. It's okay to do that.
I love that. I really love that, because it even took us a while to kind of navigate that. And I was worried about hurting someone's feelings. And it's something that, you got to go with your gut and your mom. And as the parents, better than them, even though on occasion there are some doctors that like to think otherwise. And it's okay to stand up and say, no, this isn't right.
Right. Well, and, they might be experts in, human medicine, but they are not an expert in your child. And especially having a child with Apert syndrome, they are, the doctors that helped me birth Jace had never, ever, ever seen it. They didn't even know. So you are the expert, your kid the best. And so,
exactly.
That is,
I really like that.
Yeah.
I like that answer. That's a good answer.
I think about that a lot. I told the hospital, like this, I've talked to nurses, I'm like, I wish there was like a class, like for parents of like medically complex or medically fragile kids that you could go to, and they tell you, like, if you aren't, this is who you talk to, like the charge nurse, or you go this way, or you can call a social worker, or finding those ins and outs. And I would say, find your person in the hospital. Like if you have a surgeon, ignore the front desk. That's a terrible thing to say, but ignore the front desk. Like, find your like person behind the lines, because it is so hard to get anywhere unless you have those people. I had those emails, I had their, and I knew exactly who to talk to be able to get the information to the right people. Because I feel like the front desk is almost like border patrol.
Yes. And they're these gatekeepers that don't always know what you need.
Right. Or don't even know maybe if it's even as urgent. They don't know if it's urgent or not. And so definitely find your people. Like, and once you find your people, don't let them go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then if your people do go, because we had one of ours go, make sure you know the new person.
Exactly. I had that happen. I had my surgeon, or his surgeon's assistant I loved her. I could email her. She was right back to me. And then she moved to a different doctor. I almost cried.
I did cry when mine left. I did cry. Not gonna lie.
Right. Like, oh, I have to start over.
I know. It's like, no, you're not allowed. I'm sorry. You're not allowed to leave.
But no. But yeah.
Do you guys have any other plans as far as having to travel to Philly anytime soon?
Salt Lake, is that what you mean?
Or did you guys do the hands in Philly?
Well, we did the hands in Boston.
Boston. That's right.
Boston. And we did those at the Shriners in Boston. So we don't have any other plans to return there. That was a long journey to be able to get there. But we were able to do it through the Shriners, and I had to get, approval that there wasn't an Apert expert closer, basically.
Yes. We had to go through something similar.
Yeah. Which was awesome. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. But it was awesome. There's no plans there though to return to Boston. If he does need any extra, down the lines for hands or anything, we would seek out probably someone closer. The surgeon that did his hands is actually, I think Jace was one of his last cases. He retired. Yeah, he was in retirement. Yeah, Dr. Upton. And so we feel.
I didn't know he retired.
Yeah, he was actually, when we seen him, he had retired completely from doing adults, and then he just had a few cases of children that he was doing, and then I believe he's completely retired now. I know that the last surgery we had with him, he had said that he was retiring, and that if he needed anything further done, to find a good surgeon that had experience in Apert syndrome. But
that's good to know, because a lot of people used him.
Yeah.
So,
And I know that he has some people that trained under him that still are at the Boston hospital that a lot of people go to now. But yeah, nowhere closer. I need like closer people. So if anybody, a surgeon is watching, move closer to Montana.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, it looks like our time is running down.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else that you would like to share?
I don't think so. I think I guess my thing is, behind the face is a heart. And so if anybody's watching this that does not have a child with a facial difference, please educate your kids, because it's painful when your kid, doesn't understand, and then they say rude things or they make fun of him. And he just wants a place. He's just an awesome, awesome kid. And your kid would be lucky to know him. So
Absolutely. And I think that's true for all our kiddos.
yes, it is.
Just being able to educate other parents, to have them educate their kids and ask questions instead of stare or make comments.
Right. Say hi.
Exactly. Say hi. I like that.
But I think that's, I think we covered a good bit.
We did. We really did. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm going to include the link for Embracing Us in the description box. And I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with me.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're doing this. You are a rock star mama. So yeah. And it's good to see you.
Thank you. Yes, it's very good to see you. We need to do our regular Zoom. We really need to do that.
Yes, we do. So
all right, girl. Well, thank you. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.